welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I'm Stephen Billings, and with me is your other host, Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Stephen, doing good. We're back once again with another brand new episode of Chasing Labels, and I think this is a bit of a big one in terms of spine numbering, Stephen. What number are we up to now?
Spine number 50, guys.
Big 50.
You probably got at least
50.
a good half a good shelf full of Chasing Labels episodes.
Yes,
and
all in pristine deluxe collector's editions.
I mean, this has come within a year, so, you might have ran out of some of the limited editions, but, standard editions will be reissued.
Right.
But you can always...
All the same on disc content.
Yes, you can. But, as always, we try to bring you another fascinating guest for us to talk with, and this week we have another person coming from the UK. She is a London-based... director, producer for her production company. How do you pronounce it? Caprice. Sarah, could you say it for me?
Oh boy,
I'm terrible with pronouncing things.
Capri-Sun Productions.
Okay, that you made it sound really easy.
Yeah, it was way more easier than I think you thought.
Probably, but I get in my head when I pronounce things, and then I go back to like the first grade. But yes, Sarah Appleton is here with that terribly botched introduction.
It was going
well for about 5 seconds, and then I had to pronounce something I couldn't pronounce. Sarah Appleton, director of the new documentary. And what's the name of that documentary, Sarah?
The Found Footage Phenomenon.
Yes, and I'll be honest with you. And this just dropped on Shudder, so everybody if you don't have a Shudder subscription, get that. It's not a lot. I think there might even be a trial there, maybe or not, but it's only like $5. Shudder is a very cheap and great service, very affordable. So
compared to the other ones, now.
Yeah, the other ones are ridiculous. But you can go to Shudder and watch her documentary. I think it dropped last Thursday or Friday, and and so me and Andrew both watched it, so we will be getting into that. But Sarah's also got a lot of experience working with boutique labels. She's done documentary work, she's done feature work. But Sarah, how are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm good. This is really cool. I've never been asked to talk about Blu-ray work before.
Oh, okay.
That's nice.
Well, that's great.
To be involved with that stuff because I know people really interested in it. So
well, I see a bunch of the stuff behind you too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you see my shelves of contributor copies?
Is it?
I can see.
Is this
them.
a bunch of the stuff that you've worked on?
Yeah, all of this here and some of this over here I worked on.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
fantastic.
very nice.
Yeah, I keep them separate. You probably are shocked to see them all out of order. But I keep them separate from my other collection because they're the ones I worked on.
Everybody, we talk about it all the time. Everybody's got their own kind of collecting or organizing styles. And
right.
It's different for everybody. I typically kind of go by label, but sometimes it'll be a director. Like Andrew goes I think directors.
It's way too nuanced.
It's everywhere.
It's like one section. I have subsections.
Yeah.
It's I have a director's wall, which is directors alphabetically, A through Z. Then I have another section where it's genre, A through Z, and then the movies within those genres are alphabetical as well. It's too much.
It's annoying because I've got to this stage where I started a found footage collection just to prove because there wasn't many found footage films on Blu-ray for a long time, and now this started coming out because people have realized they can be remastered and things like that. And so I've started a found footage collection, but I also have a few found footage films that I've worked on, and I've been oh no, I need to buy them twice so they can be in both.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's just
it gets very obsessive compulsive.
And so before we get into your work, we do like to start with everybody by kind of getting a little bit of a background of where their journey to getting into this started. Even just your love of movies. Where did that start for you?
When I was a kid, my dad worked as a film writer. He was a film critic for a newspaper for a long time before I was born, and then he started writing books. He wrote this book about Hammer films in the 90s in 1994 called The History of Horrors. And so I grew up, I can't remember exactly, but when I was quite a young child, my dad was always staying up. We'd go to bed and he'd stay up and watch films, and I'd be like, I want to stay up. And so you'd start staying up. Sometimes he'd let me stay up and watch Hammer films with him, because he'd probably think, she's 7 or 8, how scary are they really? And so I started watching, and I do quite vividly remember going into his office and looking at all the titles on his VHSs, going, what's this one about? What's this one about? What's this one about? Can I watch this one tonight? And he just let me. And so one of the first horror films I ever watched, I was about 8, and it was The Evil Dead 2.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that literally sparked my wanting to watch loads more horror films, and I started making a list, like what horror films I'd seen, and just, so really young age.
Oh man, you were letterboxing it before Letterbox.
Yeah, this one was really good. 5 stars.
Yeah. That's nice. Yeah, see, I hope to do that because I am having a daughter on the way here soon, and that's my hope, is that my daughter will... as she grows up, she'll recognize that Daddy likes movies a lot, and will be interested organically, and I won't have to.
I think she will.
That's please. Thanks for the positivity. Just keep throwing it towards me, please.
It's a daddy-daughter thing, I think, probably, because my brother wasn't remotely interested.
Yeah, and that the thing. I mean, there's a lot of things that rubbed off from my father onto me, like work ethic and stuff, which is good stuff, but our interests are somewhat different. So yeah, I mean, I think hopefully that'll happen for me.
Cool.
My daughter
Good luck.
will. Yeah, thank you.
It'll be a few years away, clearly.
Yeah, it's going to probably take a few years. But yeah. So from there, so your dad, a lot of your influence of what you liked was from your dad. So when did you start looking into maybe doing it as a career of some sorts, where you got into the production side?
It kind of happened by accident, in the sense that I left school when I'd done my A-levels, which I don't know if you know what that means, but when I was 18, I didn't go to university, and I got a job, and I did it for 2 years, and I was like, this is rubbish. No offense to that job.
I get it.
Most jobs are.
I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not big on school. It just didn't work for me. But
yeah. I couldn't. I hated school. I wanted to leave at 16, but that my parents convinced me I should probably get some qualifications. And then I just bought a camera and sort of decided to start shooting stuff. And it kind of just came from like literally buying a camera and having equipment and going and trying to get some jobs. So I did like corporate jobs and things like that. And then finally just accidentally stumbled into Blu-ray interview stuff. And then the more you do, the more that comes along, and I abandoned the other stuff after a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's a good your story is a good
it's
example.
not that interesting.
Well, it is interesting. I'm sure there's a lot more nuance to that story that you don't want to try to recount through a whole podcast, but it's like, just showing that somebody that if you just want to do something, and I'm not saying that school's not good, but school is not always the answer. And if you just have motivation and tenacity and just really try to do the thing you want to do, it can happen. And you can figure out you might like something. You might not know what you want to do exactly, but you might fall into something that you might actually really like.
Yeah, 100%. I say it was an accident, but I had always wanted to do this kind of stuff in film, and you just don't know how to get in. And I never thought that going to university was the way, as much as some people do. It wasn't my way anyway. If that was the only way, I wouldn't do it. So, but anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. I think everyone's path through movies is different. A lot of people industry-wise, like to have that background of education or whatnot, and then sometimes you don't need it. So it really all depends on everyone's life journey.
How you are as a person,
everyone's life journey is different.
A lot. And if you've got the right personality, I think you can probably go out and figure it out. I don't know. It's a lot of luck as well. So it's not like you say, it's not one way to do it. It's just like
no, there's never one way to do it. But when it comes to I guess physical media side of things, when was collecting like DVDs and Blu-rays part of that kind of love of movie journey for you?
I hate to say this on this podcast, but not really, I guess. I have
That's fine.
my favorite movies and I like to collect them, but it wasn't like a label thing, like where I go, oh, I'm gonna just buy all these films from the same label. But no, people do that. That's cool. It was just I'll collect the movies that I like and want to have and go back and watch them and things like that. So, and I think when I was really young, when I first, I say really young, I was probably about 15 or something when I first watched Extras, and I was watching the Dark Knight Blu-ray, and I watched all of like 4 hours or whatever it was of the extras on there, and I thought that was really cool because it's one of the best films ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people kind of started, is just kind of randomly. I think it was the DVD era, I always say, kind of changed everything, not only for movie collectors, but I think just for movie enthusiasm, education and just things like that. Because, like you said, you had um, access to extras that you really didn't have before. Laserdiscs did kind of have them with like audio commentaries and stuff like that, but DVDs were kind of a revelation, I think, for a lot of people. And like you said, that Dark Knight, when that came out, that was a phenomenon. I think there's a reason why they've re-released it so many times. People keep buying it, and I'm one of them. I'm one of them. But I think, when it comes to collecting, people just kind of collect their favorites as well. I don't think there's any real, shame in that or anything like that. Collect what you like, what you enjoy, because, there's a lot of stuff you can collect and not enjoy, and then it's kind of a waste of your time and money and all the resources.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I guess, your contributions to movie extras, while we're on the extras kind of train here, how did that all come about?
Well, I think the great thing, about working on the extras for me personally is that how much I actually like going back to the university thing, how much I actually learn about film and making you just like everything, like the people you meet, because I film a lot of interviews myself and like do the interview, and so you talk to them and you ask them questions about how things are made, how they did it, and all films are made completely differently. They're all different, just like every person is different, and so you learn, like I literally learned so much about the film industry just from doing that job. So I felt like that was the best way to learn. Um, as to how I got into it, I started off doing like running for when Blu-rays actually had when they had more budget. Now it's just me on my own, and I used to have like sound guy, lighting guy, film camera guy, me, and now I'm all of those people. So it's changed quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some filmmaking stuff, just me and friends and stuff, and half the time it ends up just being me doing everything, because lighting, fixing the lighting, doing the camera work, obviously the editing afterwards. I mean, it's there's a lot of videographers out there. It's just a one man or one woman crew.
It's a one person show, and I think a lot of that is to do with the changing of technology, and it's not only affordability, but people know how to use it now, or you can find out how to use it very easily.
Sure.
If there's one thing about the internet, is there are useful things on it when it comes to learning certain things. Everything has a learning curve, and everybody's different when it comes to learning things. But you can find out information; it's at your fingertips. So I think a lot of that has become, more. What's the word I'm looking for?
Accessible.
More composite?
Accessible.
Accessible, more.
I always say,
more like tightly knit.
Yeah, I always say I could never do this job if it was a different time. Like if it was, I started about 10 years ago, but if it was say 20 years ago, I probably couldn't do the job because of how it is now. If you had to rent like a proper camera and all this stuff, I just don't think it would.
Oh yeah, having to deal with film reels and the chemical processes, you got to send that stuff out to labs, they got to develop it and all that kind of stuff. Whereas now everything's so digital and right at your right there for you to check and edit right away.
Yeah.
It's so much easier now.
But also the workload is bigger. I mean, I found that, because obviously you can do stuff so quickly. People are like, I'll go and film this thing and edit it for me and then do it again tomorrow and then the next day. And you're delivering like 5 things in a week. And you're like, imagine if people could do that back before, especially even when people were just sending before the internet where you could send giant files across the internet. I mean, even when I started, people were sending whole hard drives. Like I think someone sent me this hard drive from Australia with this stuff on. And I was just thinking, man, I mean, recently just sending stuff on the internet, I complain about the internet, but at the end of the day, it makes the ability to do a lot more quicker, and then you get more money, obviously, and you can create more. So it's a good thing, obviously.
Now, what was one of the first kind of companies that you worked for? Because I know you have a list of kind of different companies that you've done extras for. BFI, Severin,
Yeah.
101, I think was also there. Where did all of those kind of connections kind of start? Did you just like apply for jobs, or did they
No,
they seek you out?
I hate to say it actually, but you've asked me it directly. I just try and avoid saying it.
Oh
But
boy.
my dad, obviously, he because he already was in the industry in a sense, he knew a lot of film producers and stuff. He knew the guys at Severin, David and Carl at
Yeah.
Severin, and they contacted him about like doing an extra for their Jack the Ripper release because he wrote a book on Jack the Ripper movies. And they were like, oh, how can you go into London? How can we do this? And he was like, Sarah's just bought a camera. She can film it. And like,
There you go.
yeah, and it was fine. And I did it well, clearly. And they carried on using me ever since. I still work for them. So
That's great. Well, I mean, look,
Fantastic.
it's who you know. I mean, that's fine. I mean, as
yeah,
long as you're good
it
at
is that. But I mean, people
Yeah,
really
if you're
frown
good
upon
at
that.
it.
People are like, so many people
Very
on Twitter
true.
all the time, like, oh, all these nepotism babies. I'm like, I try and
uh,
avoid saying like, I do work so hard. So the
yeah,
idea
you're
that
working hard. I mean, I mean, look,
like I had that one
if you were
connect.
if you were incompetent, it would be one thing, but that's not the case.
Yeah, if the work was subpar and on any of those contextual things, then that would be, I guess,
Then we
worthy
wouldn't
to
have
complain
invited
about. But
you.
no, your
We
work is
wouldn't have
great.
invited you. No,
I know.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I mean,
true. It's just like one of those things that I try not to talk about it, but it's that just because people sort of look at you differently or whatever. But I feel like I worked so hard and just had that one connection back in the day that led to everything. So you can't really, what can you do?
I mean, you've maintained
Yeah.
it, so that shows
Well,
that you,
exactly. If I was rubbish, no one would use me, would they?
yeah, wouldn't keep you. And
Right.
the other companies wouldn't have followed suit. So there you go. But so Severin, what are some of the other ones that you've enjoyed doing some work for? You liked it,
I particularly like working for 101 Films, and they're in the
yeah.
UK, and I think they have 101 International and stuff, but they're part of a bigger company. But I met them a couple of years ago with Phil, actually, my co-director of the film, and we both did stuff for them separately. And I met them via, I don't know if you guys get the Dark Side magazine in the US, but it's
Sure.
basically the only genre magazine in the UK. And the guy who
Oh.
runs that introduced me to Tim, this guy who works for 101. And that's how and then they were like, oh, we need some content for, I think the first one they did was Roller Coaster, the 76 film, with, oh, what's his name? I forget that bit. I can't remember who's in it. George Segal. George
Yeah,
Segal.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so I love working for them because we're working on some stuff at the moment. I'm not sure, it's not been announced. It's really cool, and they just sort of let me do my thing and do what I want to do. And rather than some other companies will just say, oh, can you film this person, can you edit it, they go, oh, what can you create for this disc, and then you get to like produce stuff properly from start to finish. So that's why I like working for them.
Awesome. Now, getting to your film that has just released, the found footage phenomenon. I'll be honest with you. This was a subgenre that I was never really a big fan of.
No one was.
Yeah, I know. And
It was very underground. I would say.
I mean, the thing is it's one of the, and as is kind of explained in the documentary, it's one of them genres that kind of goes away, comes back, and it typically flows with technology. You know, when
Yeah.
there's kind of an upgrade with technology, it seems to kind of rear its head back up and find new and interesting ways to kind of reinvent itself.
Yeah.
I think more recently of a film like Searching,
Yeah.
you know, which is a great kind of
Like Screen Life film.
yeah. I mean, and that was the other thing about the documentary I really liked, was it made me widen my scope of exactly what fits into that genre. Because, you know, I typically think of, you know, things like Blair Witch or The Last Broadcast, which is also kind of brought up with that, you know, the Troll Hunter and the main ones that kind of really follow the kind of standard rules of found footage. But there are some other ones that you could kind of like come at it from a different angle, and they're also kind of under that umbrella, but in a little less obvious
Yeah.
way.
Oh my God, I'm so glad that you said that. No one's actually said that yet.
Oh, okay.
That made them think about that, because I came on it. I always think of it like it's not literal. Like, you don't have to have a film where someone literally finds a camera and plugs
Yeah.
it in and watches the footage. I think that the whole point of it is that it's making you think that it's real, it's been recorded, and it's something that really happened in the world. And so that means that incorporates stuff like mockumentaries, and also like Screen Life, like Host and Searching, and you know, Unfriended, and Cam, I think there's one called, and the Den, you know, all those films. And then you've also got The Bay, which has like just an amalgamation of loads of different like things, like CCTV camera watching some people, and then you've got someone's phone recording of something, and it's all about the same one event that happened that day. It's all those things, and all they have in common is that they're telling you that you're watching something that was really recorded in the real world, which no other movie tells you that. You know, as much as you're supposed to believe in the horror movie you're watching, you know that it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
That's the literal difference.
Yeah, definitely. And so you directed this alongside a partner, Philip Escott. How did that all come together?
He like I say, he works on Blu-ray stuff too. Maybe you want to talk to him.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
He works for Second Sight. And
hey, that's somebody I haven't talked to anybody at Second Sight yet, so I'd love to do that.
You should. I'll give you an email after it, because he's super cool, and
Awesome.
He'd love to talk to you about Second Sight and everything. Yeah. And he worked for 101. That's how I met him. And he was working on the Second Sight Blu-ray release of Lake Mungo. This was like early summer 2020. And I found out because I love Lake Mungo, and I was going, oh my God, someone said someone's got Lake Mungo, who's got it? And Phil was like, hey, it's Second Sight, you know, I'm working on it. And I was like, oh my God, we have to make a documentary about found footage, because I've been waiting years to make this, because it's always been something that I wanted to do. But you can't just make it, you have to have a reason, you know. And he said, well, to be honest, we've already finished disc. And I was like, no. But he said, but to be honest, I didn't think about it before, but it sounds like it could be much bigger scale, and that we should just do it. And because we were in the pandemic, I literally had like no work on. Why not? Let's do it.
Right. And I just backtracking just a little bit, I guess your whole inspiration for doing this documentary, I assume that it's born out of your love or fascination with not only the horror genre, but the found footage horror genre, or just genre in and of itself. Now, where did those origins start? Like, did you see them growing up in the theater or something like that?
It's quite hard to pinpoint when you start getting onto like a genre. If you're going to call this as like a subgenre, it's quite hard to think back and think, why did I suddenly start thinking about that? But I do remember when I watched Megan is Missing, and I think that was probably around 2011 when it came out, probably, because I'm not sure how it came out, but back then I was interested in watching sort of the most gory, the most scary, the most outrageous horror films that I could possibly find. And I think it was around the time of watching like The Human Centipede and all that sort of stuff. And I was thinking, well, you know, how much further can people push it and stuff? And someone told me about Megan is Missing, so I watched that. And I thought, wow, that is like the most horrific thing I've ever seen. I never want to watch that ever again. And there's one scene in it that really scares me. And I still, even after doing this documentary, I didn't watch it all the way through because I didn't want to see that bit. And I think that's what started my interest in like, why was that so scary? And it was because it makes you've never, you hear about kids getting kidnapped and stuff, but you never hear about what happens in between them getting kidnapped and then them being found dead. And not that you'd want to know. That's the point, right? But that film tells you the middle bit, which is horrible.
Which is the most horrific part of the whole everything. That's the stuff the news stories really gloss over, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously for horrific, traumatic reasons.
Yeah.
And, cinema is able to kind of expose those things and really introduce us and kind of blur the lines between reality and fiction. Because I think with the found footage genre is that it really is blurring those lines between reality and fiction. As we were just saying, that it's trying to make you believe that what you're seeing is true when it's not. But it is also, in this case, probably pointing out something that could perhaps be true. And that's even scarier when you think of that.
Yeah.
If something that grisly can be reality.
Yeah, totally. It's more than you're seeing a monster that could be there or could not be there. It was seeing something that happens in reality, but you never know what actually happens because they're never going to tell you. And to be honest, they probably don't even know, So yeah. I think that made me think, wow, that genre can scare you in a way, found footage can scare you in a way that other films maybe can't, because you just think you're watching something that you weren't supposed to see. Like they say in the documentary, you weren't supposed to see this,
Yeah, there's a and even you guys even go back in this sense of trying to go back to the roots of where that goes, and something that we brought up a bunch of times, a film that's, because it's very influential in many different ways, something like Peepin' Tom, where it's got that voyeuristic viewpoint where you're like kind of in the killer's, viewpoint, and it kind of makes you feel odd just being in on his, like, what his, like, view is, like, why he's doing this, and like kind of sitting in with him, and it becomes unnerving just being from their vantage point.
I mean, that film had a massive impact at the time. It ruined Michael Powell's career because because the audience was not prepared for basically what the message that the film was telling you is that you're, by watching this, like you are through the camera, like he was through his camera, through the film, the lens of the camera is like basically the lens of the film. You're implicit in what's happening. You're basically murdering. You want to see this person be murdered. That's why you're watching. And people didn't really want to be told that.
Oh no, especially at the time, which is, I believe, late 1950s, circa 1960. 1960, which is right at that end of that 1950s, suburban, well, just an American perspective. I always call it the Leave It to Beaver era, where it's like white picket fence and suburbs and, 4-family, member families and all that kind of stuff, kind of shattering that idea that things aren't, so clean cut. People do have sick tendencies, and it's interesting how that film and Psycho were right around the same era, and it was just a precursor to kind of like a decade of just an explosion of violence and all kinds of things in society and whatnot. It's really interesting how kind of movies were a little bit ahead of its time when it came to chilling people to their core, making them see themselves in a negative way, and then eventually reality would become that people would then do devastating, terrible things later on. After that we would get, the term serial killer would come around in the 1970s and all this kind of stuff. And of course the Manson murders and all that kind of stuff. And it's really interesting how those movies were a precursor to that. The voyeurism is so interesting to me because it's a thing that Alfred Hitchcock used a lot, and he used it to, kind of put you in that mindset as well. But then he also would use it for other reasons, like like sexual voyeurism or just voyeurism, you know, in like Rare Window, where it's just people, you're just watching people. And it's like, is it right to like look in people's private lives or is it not?
But they got their windows wide open, so why not?
Yeah, that's also true. So it's like, but is that
what,
you know?
do they want to be watched?
Is that still do they want to be watched, or are they just opening because it's a hot day? You know, that doesn't necessarily give you license to do that. You know, especially not with binoculars like Jimmy Stewart did. That was taking it a little bit too far. But it's so the kind of, you know, gestation of this documentary seems to be born out of, you know, your fascination with all of that. And then how was the research for all of this? Did you have to end up going back and watching just massive amounts of movies, or did you just kind of...
Was this pure knowledge? Was this pure knowledge?
Was pure knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange because actually at that point I knew quite a lot about found footage already, so I knew what films were there and everything. And I know that some people say we didn't include lots of films, and you know, we weren't intending to make like a listicle of all the found footage films ever made. It was more of a which ones made an impact in a different way, you know. And so I feel like I knew all the beats, but then Phil came along and he was saying, oh no, you know, he knew a lot more of the origins with Cannibal Holocaust and things like that. And he would be the one who said, oh yeah, what about this film? And he wanted to take it back to like you know, when we went back to Bram Stoker and the earlier and Orson Welles and that stuff. And he was much more on the early chronology, whereas I knew about the chronology from like the 90s onwards, and so it really paired together quite well. And so if you say research, like we watched each other's recommendations and things like that, but we had a basic structure. But I think that the thing sort of builds itself with the interviews. And one thing that we found, we interviewed two guys, Lance Weiler, and who did the last broadcast, and with Stefan, and Patrick Bryce, who did Creep, and they both mentioned this film called David Holtzman's Diary in their interviews. I think we left that in the film, and we were like, we'd never heard of this. What's this film? You know, and they seem to have watched it in film school or something. And but because it's American, I guess we never watched it. We'd never learned about it in school or anything. And it was a film that was quite key in its time because it was in the 60s, and it did that sort of, it's the guy filming himself, and then the sort of sinister aspects of his personal life that you maybe aren't supposed to see, or you wouldn't know, because unless he was doing a video diary, he's, you know, if it's like someone writing a journal. That's why it goes back to like Bram Stoker's and Jonathan Harker writing a journal. It's stuff that if you met someone in the street, they're not just going to tell you all this stuff. It's their private diary. It's their private video diary. And so it very much was an important sort of point in the history that we didn't know about. So, you know, we learned quite a lot along the way as well.
No, that's great. I mean, that's good for you. That makes that has to make the process even more rewarding, because it's just like us doing this podcast. Like, you know, we do this, and week by week we have to kind of watch new movies every week that the labels basically curate for us. Yeah. And it helps us expand our watching. You know, we're almost forced to watch stuff that we would have probably not watched otherwise, or at least not at the time, you know, not now. So, you know, doing this, taking on this documentary has made you have to focus in now on the whole backdrop of where the origins of found footage might run you, and that gave you direction to learn more about what you already love, you know, so that's great.
That's the best thing about documentaries, making documentaries, watching documentaries, making special features, working on Blu-rays in general. You were learning about films that you never knew about. And that's, I mean, I think, how can you say you're a cinephile or whatever if you don't try and watch things that you maybe wouldn't have chosen to watch?
Yeah, you got to go out of your comfort zone sometimes, and sometimes you'll be surprised.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but you know, not every, you know, you were saying like, you know, you weren't able to go like crazy and include everything. Not everybody can be that folk horror documentary from the Woodland. What's the name of the documentary?
Woodland Stark and Days Bewitched.
Yeah, God,
it's right behind her.
Yeah, I see it. It's like not everybody can be that one. That's like 3.5 hours. Like,
yeah, it is like 3 hours.
That has like has to have every damn
folk horror film
thing in it. Like, it's
mentioned in
crazy.
it.
Yeah. And I worked on that for Kayla. I did some filming for it, and it's not that I didn't really know what she was doing with it when I was filming, but we didn't want to do that. We weren't in. I mean, her film is great. We just, we didn't want it. We wanted to sort of do a kind of like put found footage in context of horror history, because it hadn't been done yet, and no one had thought about it within that. We weren't there to just go, oh, what about this one, what about this one, what about this film? And there was films like, we really wanted to talk about My Little Eye. I always bring this one up because it's the main detour that I probably would have took, because it's all CCTV, and so it's very much the reality TV strand of like Big Brother and films and things like that. And it's the first film that Bradley Cooper was ever in, I think. He's like this cameo role. I mean, it's not a cameo because no one knew who he was, but he's like some sort of guy who just turns up out of nowhere and wants to use the phone or something like that. I can't remember. But because of when it came out, it was like 2001, I think. It was just when things started to change, and obviously 9/11 happened and stuff, and we couldn't address what 9/11 did to horror films at the same time as going off towards like My Little Eye, so we just had to like abandon that.
I was actually going to ask, when it comes to documentary filmmaking, it's notorious that you have so much footage and stuff to work with. How difficult is it to kind of composite that down and make it relatively streamlined to kind of make it all flow well within the documentary itself? Because that seems like especially with a genre that spanned, or a subgenre that spans so many years like this does.
Well, that's the thing, I guess. I say that we left it up to the interviewees, but we had quite a solid structure, which was quite chronological based. Where did it start? What is it? Where does it, going through the early years, and then the 90s, Ghostwatch, Man Bites Dog, Last Broadcast, Blair Witch, and then the boom, what happened in 9/11, then the boom after that with like Paranormal Activity. So when the sort of basic, and it's in a chronological order, so that's why I say we couldn't have gone off with My Little Eye because of the date that it came in. It didn't fit with the line we were doing, and because of that, you ask people all that stuff. So we weren't there to just ask Lance and Stefan about how did you make the last broadcast. We weren't just talking about like the making of their film. We were asking them everything related to the structure that we had. So that's how it keeps it in. And obviously you then have to pick and choose what people have said, which works best. But that's much easier than asking a huge broad range of stuff. Like, as much as all that stuff's super interesting, we couldn't get like 3 hours interview with someone where we know they're talking about their film, but we know we're not going to use it because it's not in the structure.
Right.
I'm not saying it's super rigid, but you make it easier for yourself. You don't ask them stuff.
Yeah.
Why did you first come up with this film or whatever, if it's not relevant,
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's all part of pre-production and outlining and re-outlining and pre-planning and all of those things.
Yeah.
So the documentary itself is, like we said, is available on Shudder. When it came to the distribution of the documentary, was it specifically for streaming, or did you plan for it to be theatrical?
I don't think a documentary like that would have gone theatrical. I think, especially me and Phil working in distribution, you kind of get an idea for how, you might think if you don't know about distribution that a film could go anywhere, but really all the different companies are so different that if you don't design your film for like a particular company or where you want it to go, you'll probably struggle, because our film probably wouldn't go on Netflix, for example, because it's too niche. And talk about Blu-ray release, most Blu-ray labels aren't that interested in docs, and so we really appreciate the fact that Shudder exists, because I think if it didn't, we'd probably have trouble getting it out there. And that's why I say, you know, I wanted to do it for years, but you need to have a really good reason, and know that it's going to go somewhere. You know, you don't just make a documentary and go, oh, put it on YouTube and people can watch it or something. So
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, like you can, but I mean, if you're really trying to get something out of it, like you know, because that a lot of money and time goes into that, you know. And
yeah, a lot of money.
yeah. So, you know, it's
you want to make that back.
Yeah, you want to make something back on it. Yeah, you want to try. Yeah, but you know, one aspect. I mean, this isn't, of course, not part of the main core of the documentary. I do want to bring up. I really loved the intro, the credits at the beginning, where you had like the videotapes and like all the things that were like very thematic to found footage as part of your opening credits. I thought that was really well done. I really liked that.
Yeah, that they were made by Tim Grabham, actually.
Okay.
He's a filmmaker himself. He made a film recently called Ghost Amber, and he also made a film in 2015 with co-directed with Jasper Sharp, who happens to be my partner in life.
Okay.
And nice. That was called The Creeping Garden. And so that's how I met him. And he's just so good with animation and like beyond what I could have imagined. I sort of just told him what the film was about, and he went away and did all I said we wanted to sort of showcase different the technology element, you know, so we have the DV camera and the VHS and stuff, because it really went through that period of becoming digital, so more accessible for filmmakers to make films and stuff. And he just came back with that, and we were like, oh my god, that's so amazing.
It's great when you have other talented people like that around you, and you can just hand something off to them and they come back and you're like, you gave me something I didn't even know I wanted. You know,
exactly. And it's hard to explain when you're not that creative visionary with like that sort of thing, and you're going, oh, I sort of want this, but you'd have to think up the actual idea, because I can't.
But I thought that was really well done. And so is there anything else, like something of this ilk in the works? You thinking of anything else right now?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it just because we've been doing quite a few interviews, and I don't think there's any reason not to talk about it because we have started, but it's not like officially announced or anything. But we're working on another documentary, but about the turn of the millennium horror, because I think it's a really interesting thing that happened after the 90s, and like you have the slashers sort of winding up, and Scream happened, and then you have like weird period in the late 90s where things started to change and shift, and you had stuff like J-horror started, and then you had Blair Witch Project, and you had like into the 2000s you had like loads of remakes started happening.
Oh yeah,
like
loads of remakes.
House on Haunted Hill.
Oh yeah.
13 Ghosts, The Haunting, and those three in particular all came out at the same time, I think. And there were obviously this idea that, oh, it's a new millennium, we're going to just boom everything out, and you had Wrong Turn and Wolf Creek and Hostel and Saw and like Final Destination that happened in 99, right? This huge boom of all sorts of different things, and we thought that would be a really interesting era that I don't think people have really looked at. And then so that sort of trajectory.
That's fascinating, because it sounds so much like a companion piece to this documentary that you just did. You know, kind of that era of horror that many people now who are now adults lived through as young people or as adolescents or young adults. And we were all, like I was saying before the show, I guess kind of tying it back in, is that we all lived through these times, yet we didn't realize the significance of it while it was happening.
100%.
We just kind of went along with it, like everyday life was happening.
And I do think like people are sort of stuck in the 80s with the horror because of what happened in the 90s, and they think, oh, the horror stopped in the 80s. The 80s is great, and then that's it. And nobody really, unless you're my generation, I think, I mean, you know, I'm not talking for everyone, obviously, but I was like 10 in 2002 when the Ring America remake came out. It scared the absolute shit out of me, literally terrified me to my core. My dad always regretted showing me that film, but the point is that was what I grew up with, that era. And so I think that like older horror film lovers don't necessarily see it the same, and so that's why I think we can just at least document it. I mean, whether people like it or not, that's another story.
Oh yeah, I think it's really important to now to look back at films from 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's 20 years
You know,
ago. I mean, it's not that new.
yeah, it's not that new. And also, I remember just going through school, like, 20 years prior is considered, history. So you are looking back at quote unquote history of the horror genre. And it's fascinating because you're right. The 80s do get very much talked about, very glorified, very discussed, and even more so now than ever. But there is a fascinating nuance to the 90s and the 2000s, and just this diverse, subgenre upon subgenre of horror. And I'm actually really excited for that documentary now that you mention it.
Thank you.
So I'll be watching it whenever it comes out.
Thanks. I'm hoping that people will be open to it. It's another one, like when we first started found footage, we were really like, I really wanted to make the film, but I was pretty much prepared for everyone to hate it because people don't like found footage so much. But so we'll see. But hopefully we'll create some sort of document. It's the main thing.
Well, great. Yeah, that's, I mean, like I echo Andrew's sentiment. It's, we see a lot of people, and obviously we love this, but a lot of when it comes to documenting, we tend to want to go back super far back. We want to go 50 years, we want to go 60 years, we want to get all that stuff that was so far gone that it feels like a whole other world. But just going back 20 years with technology moving so fast, it almost feels like a whole other world.
It's like, I think our world, because I think we're all, all three of us are of a relative similar age, that our world is now the most recent past. So it needs to be, looked at now, analyzed, reanalyzed, and discussed now, because it is, as time moves forward, it's becoming more and more our recent past and more significant in terms of, culture, and then, of course, movies. I mean, we talked about it recently, how a lot of movies that came out 10, 20 years now are getting reappraisals.
Yeah.
People are reviewing them and seeing them with new eyes and new clarity and and stuff like that. And it's even more interesting to go back 20 years and review, the 90s era in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think that people don't think the 90s is interesting, but there is some stuff there that at least leads to other things that are interesting. And you have to think, why was it not interesting? What was happening? And so I think it's more the context is super interesting, of what was happening at the time, which meant that's why films were not working so well at that time. And then what changed to make suddenly a big boom of films come out and stuff. So I find that more what was happening in the world that caused all these things to be the interesting part. And it's easy to say, like, oh, nothing happened in the 90s, it was a lost era or whatever, but why,
Well, knowing the people that are into what we talk about on this show, boutique labels tend to like to make sure that context gets, put on disc. You do it, you work on feature work. So even just your documentaries is like having a really awesome feature that's even maybe not be on somebody's disc, but like just having that is just like another whole big feature for us. And I love getting that. I love getting the historical context behind even a whole movement or era of things. And it's important for us to have that to go back to and to easily, that's what this the found footage phenomena does, is it points out things about the genre and gives you roots and gives you history that can make you appreciate it a little bit more than I did before. So I can say that about what the documentary did for me, is that it actually helped me appreciate the genre a little bit more. Not going to say it's still my favorite genre, but it did open my eyes up a little bit more to what that genre has to offer, and that it actually has a wider scope than I realized. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for watching it.
No. But I'm forgetting my co-host's name. Andrew, anything else would you like to ask Sarah before we leave?
No, I covered pretty much everything. I'd like to thank her for her time and her patience with all my intricate questions about the production of said documentary. I think it's all kind of fascinating, how the the things are made type of thing, which I'm always interested in. And we could of course talk about all kind of stuff, but I think we covered a good amount.
And Sarah, if you're willing, you can talk with us again. Maybe we'll bring you. We bring you back, and when the next documentary comes out.
The next documentary.
Yes.
Sure, if you want to, fine.
Oh, of course we do. Of course we do. But Sarah, if anybody wants to reach out to you or get you to do some feature work for them, do any kind of work for them, where should they contact you at?
You can get me on Twitter. I'm under Sarah Appleton _. Yeah, I think I've got my DMs open generally, just in case someone important wants to get hold of me. Never happens. I mean, no one ever DMs me in general.
Come on. Guys, DM her right now.
maybe
everybody that listens to us, just flutter. Just say hey. Just say hey.
Maybe
to
that's not the best thing to do.
Yeah, no, whatever.
No.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and we hope you have a good rest of your night.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Well, that was Sarah Appleton. She was fantastic. It was funny. We didn't even plan to have her on right when her new documentary was coming out.
Really?
No,
I always thought that was the plan this whole time.
No, it wasn't. I don't believe at the time when I found her, I did not. I just saw that she had done special, feature work and I did see that she was working on something, but I did, and that something was coming. That the found footage phenomenon was coming, but I didn't know when it was coming. At least I don't remember. But that wasn't the reason I reached out. So it was just great happenstance.
That is fascinating because literally that documentary just came out
last week,
a matter of days ago, as of this recording. And it's just kind of so coincidentally interesting how those things can work out sometimes. She was wonderful. It was really awesome talking to her about found footage, a documentary, as well as just, horror movies and things in general. It was really a pleasant experience.
Didn't have to be Halloween to talk horror movies.
Oh, it never does.
Never does.
It never does.
Nope.
It really never. You can be spooky all year round.
All year round, guys. But
it really doesn't matter.
All right.
But moving on to the main bulk of our show. Of course, we've got Blu-ray announcements galore, as we usually do. A little bit more to talk about this week than we've had in recent weeks, because we have 3 major slates that came out. Criterion dropped some new announcements. Indicator dropped some new announcements, as well as Imprint.
So yeah, we're going everywhere.
We're going everywhere. We're going here, there, and everywhere. But before we get into that, there's a couple of interesting tidbits that came out recently that I want to discuss. And the first one being that, unfortunately, the BFI release of Peter Bogdanovich's film Targets, that was going to come out on Blu-ray in June, actually, which it was scheduled already to come out on June 20th, I think was canceled, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, it looks like some kind of issue with, I guess, licensing must have happened, and it's sad because you were just talking about this with Matt Patterson.
Literally last week.
Yeah.
Literally last week.
Almost feel like you cursed it, by just bringing it up.
You know what? They heard us, and they heard us so enthusiastic about it that they decided, hey, let's
be a killjoy.
Let's just kill their joy, and just be complete buzzkills when it comes to all of this.
Nah, stuff like this happens. It happens, unfortunately.
It happens. I do want to read their statement here. Official statement: we are sorry to announce that our planned release of Peter Bogdanovich's Targets is being suspended due to ongoing issues regarding the materials required for the release. We sincerely apologize for the disappointment this news will bring, but feel this decision is necessary in order to maintain the quality and integrity customers should expect from the BFI label. We do still hope to release this title on Blu-ray at some point in the future. We are currently unable to confirm when this will be. Further announcements will be made once the situation becomes clearer. All customers who have pre-ordered via the BFI shop will be contacted, and well, it's unfortunate that those things happen, but I'm glad that they're not putting out a subpar release just for the sake of putting out a subpar release.
Exactly.
They are, being
responsible.
very honest about it.
Well, and this is something that happens sometimes. I mean, probably when they initially, put out the news that they were going to do this, they probably thought they had good elements, and maybe through the restoration process, they found that it was maybe not as in good condition as they hoped. That's I don't know. I mean, that could be something of that ilk, or I don't know. That's the only thing that, because I mean, sometimes you have a film on hand. They have a negative or whatever they're using, and it's a full new restoration, so you don't know exactly how well preserved it is until you get in there. So maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe maybe the elements just weren't there. Unfortunately, we have to wait yet more time.
Well, yeah.
But moving on from there, there's been another interesting news tidbit regarding Kino. We won't be delving into Kino's stuff this week because I just feel like it's probably best to hold off on that. But Kino has been busy when it comes to making business deals, as they typically do, and they actually just struck up a new partnership, contract, deal, whatever you want to call it, with Paramount, of all people. Paramount has, like we've said, has been opening up their catalog and just been delving out all kind of stuff through their self, and I guess now through Kino. So this information is really awesome because it gives us just more of that catalog coming out. This involves 65 new titles, 3 Paramount renewals, and 3 CBS renewals for a total of 71. And this includes 4K UHD titles. And Steven, what is the first one that they've come out of the gate with?
The classic, and some would say problematic film, Tropic Thunder, from director Ben Stiller. Yeah.
Yes. I want to say a recent comedy, but unfortunately, it's not so recent
not as recent
anymore.
as it's like 20. It's not 20. It's like 12 years old now, something like that.
Oh, I think it may be even
14?
more than that.
14 years old.
When did it come out?
Is it 2008? Right around Iron Man. Right around Iron.
2008.
Yeah.
Damn. So we're talking 14 years.
Yeah. Man, that was
14 years.
Look,
and Steven,
I love that.
You were saying
I love this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're a big fan of it.
Yeah.
I know many people are a big fan of it. It's very satirical. It's very, it's a hysterical film. And of course, it stars Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr., Jack Black is in the film as well. It's
endless.
A great
It's endlessly
comedy.
quotable.
People have been quoting it forever, and I believe Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for Golden Globe.
It was nominated for an Oscar.
For an Oscar for it as well.
Yeah, supporting actor.
It was,
supporting actor.
Yeah.
Which nowadays
crazy.
would be, look, this must have been the last one right before it got really controversial when it came to like Oscar So White and all that stuff like that. Because this movie would not play, this must have been one of the last ones that got slipped in there.
Well, yeah. I mean, the great controversy in it is that Robert Downey Jr.'s character in it is such a method, crazy, wild actor. If anything, it's a satire on method acting that he decides to go completely blackface in it.
He gets a surgery done
in the film.
Yeah.
Like he has it surgically done,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that people are, have always talked about. But then people have always also defended it, saying it's a satire of method acting and a satire of people using blackface, as opposed to just having an African American or black actor.
They bring it up. They bring it up in the movie.
They bring it up in the movie. There is a black character in the movie that brings it up constantly.
I know who I am. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude. Everybody knows that.
Exactly.
Everybody knows that line.
And and the movie, like you were saying, Steven, there are 2 cuts of the movie. There's a director's cut and a theatrical cut. And at this point, just give us both.
Yeah.
Give us both.
And
Don't play around.
Yeah, I told Andrew this. I was like, I maybe it's controversial. I don't know if it is or not, but I prefer the theatrical cut because there are certain jokes I think that are switched out or taken out from the theatrical that I love. And when I first got the Blu-ray upgrade, which seemed to mostly be with the director's cut, I would watch it and I was like, "Where's that joke I love?" They took some of my favorite little moments out, and I'm like, "Nah, man." I keep the DVD. I keep the DVD for that theatrical cut.
One thing that I've learned is that there tends to be when movies were upgraded from DVD to Blu-ray, especially early on. The movies, in the early days of Blu-ray, they were limited in terms of they would just either upgrade the theatrical cuts and not include the director's cuts that were on the DVDs. 'Cause I remember getting so many 2-disc DVD sets that had the theatrical cut on one disc and the director's cut on another, or the unrated version on some other disc, or whatever the terms were at the time. But when they came to Blu-ray, they just kind of didn't do that for a lot of the movies. And now I guess they have to go back and do it. And a lot of people are realizing that they need to track down these old DVD copies or keep their old DVD copies. So it doesn't really save on shelf space.
So Tropic Thunder, whenever the pre-order drops, I'm getting it. I mean, it's exciting. Hopefully, it has what I want out of it.
Hopefully, it looks good too.
Well,
I mean, it is a modern movie,
yeah.
So it should look good. But I'm assuming it's getting a remaster and HDR and all that kind of upgraded stuff that we're used to right now.
Get some.
Yeah. But moving on from there.
Kind of smell. Okay, I got one more line I gotta say.
Go ahead, bring it out.
Kind of smells like bloaty for some reason. I don't know what. Referring to his pee. Kind of smell like bloaty for some reason. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
You got it all out of your
I
system?
could do more, but let's go. We got more.
Fantastic. But moving on from there, like I just said, moving on to one of the slates. Steven, where do you want to go first? I'll leave it up to you.
Let's go Criterion, because that's, I think, the latest.
Wow.
That's the latest of the drops that we got, right? Didn't Criterion come out first out of all three of these?
Was the latest,
or maybe it was Indicator.
Yeah, I think Imprint was the last one that dropped.
Well, I'm saying the first out of these three that dropped, wasn't it Criterion?
Was Criterion?
Yeah. Let's start there then.
Yeah, they were earliest. Yeah. Okay, sounds good to me. So Criterion did their usual 5 movie announcements, and we have a list of films here. 2 of these are rather connected to one another, and I'll get into that when we get to them. But first up is Daddy Longlegs, Frownland, Hotel du Nord, Buck and the Preacher, and then I think this is how you pronounce it, Fayadai or Fayadai. I'm not quite sure. Unfortunately, that was the one film I wasn't able to watch out of the slate because it's really, really difficult to find. So, luckily, we're going to get it on physical media in some form. But where do you want to dive in first?
Well, the only one of these that I was able to take a look at was the Hotel du Nord.
Really?
Yeah.
You were able to watch that?
Yes. It was on Criterion Channel. And,
yes, it is.
Yeah, it's got an interesting. I was interested in it because, it's a 1930s film. And this is an era where anytime you can get something really nice out of this era, it's great because, I mean, the older, the harder it is to find these films. And this is one of the movies where it's like in one location for like the whole movie kind of thing. I mean, not like literally like one room, but like it centers around this hotel and all the people and the comings and goings. And, there's like a love story there, a tragic love story, almost kind of like Romeo and Juliet-esque in ways, where they like kind of don't want to leave each other, and then kind of crazy shit happens. And I don't want to give it all away, but it's a great film.
No, it's a great film.
Yeah.
It's very shades of early maybe film noir,
yeah.
pre-film noir stuff going on. Black and white. It's French.
I was gonna say it does feel very Frenchy, like Frenchy.
Well, it is a French film.
Yeah,
but it is directed by Marcel Carné, and a lot of people will know Marcel Carné because several of his films are in the Criterion
Is it Children
collection.
of Paradise? Is it?
Children of Paradise is a big one.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are big fans of that. Les Visiteurs du Soir is another one.
Wait, say that again?
Port of Shadows.
Say that again?
Les Visiteurs du Soir.
I wish I could do that.
I know. It's that 5 years of French I took.
Oh, well, good, man. I'm glad you got that. I wish I'd have cared about Spanish, but I didn't.
Between high school and college, I took 5 years of French,
Jesus.
And it's never been useful in my entire life.
Now?
Until this podcast.
Yeah. Until we started doing the podcast. And now you can really, out of both of us, you can pronounce things a lot better than me.
At least I can get it close. I don't even know if they're accurate pronunciations.
Dude, it sounds...
At least they sound good.
I basically just give up. I just get at least you say
at least
something.
It sounds like I'm making an effort.
Yeah, you're at least
know?
making efforts. I can't even get past the first letter.
I mean, it's one of those where it's a language that doesn't get used a lot here, and if you don't, it's like anything. If you don't practice it constantly, you lose it, and you don't.
I'm gonna blame me being really bad at reading to watching too much. I'm not reading books enough, so I'm forgetting how to read. That's what's happening.
Really?
That's what's happening.
I didn't know that could happen.
I know it's bullshit, but I'm just gonna say that. I'm gonna.
Okay.
I'm going with that. I'm just going with it. I'm giving myself an excuse.
You're doing.
Andrew, just let me have this.
Yeah, you got it. You can take it. But another one is Port of Shadows, which only has a DVD release.
Yeah.
But it has a Blu-ray release through Kino, and I know because I have it. But it's unfortunately, I damaged the packaging one time by accident. I don't even know how this happened. So, people at home, forgive me here, but I have a lot of Blu-rays and whatnot, and
really,
I have to put them basically wherever I can put them, and a lot of them I would put on the couch next to me.
Yes.
And basically one time, I don't know how this happened. I had an old couch that had a lot of holes developing in it because it was like a 20-year-old couch, and for some reason the Port of Shadows Blu-ray fell through the cracks underneath and got underneath the couch. And for some reason, the couch was on top of it. I have no idea how that happened. And so the disc is fine. It's just the packaging is not good.
In my mind,
so I got to replace it.
Yeah. As you're telling the story, in my mind, I'm hearing that classic song you hear in like all the epic movies, like ha 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 ha.
Yeah, it's not so much that it fell down there.
Yeah.
It's that it was like there was something on like the couch ended up on top of it when the couch doesn't move.
Yeah.
It's a stationary thing.
Yeah.
But I look at it all the time, and I hate myself for it because I take so much pride in the condition of my movies, and this is one that's just the packaging is cracked and whatnot.
Let me tell you the sad story of mine that'll maybe it'll make you feel better. So
hopefully
in the moving to this house, so I had to travel with all my. Of course, even me being careful as I was, traveled with all my stuff, and through that travels, I had one edition end up slipping out of my car and falling onto the cement, which then bent up a corner. And that is and this is not even just like a Blu-ray case. This is like a special edition, nice thing, limited edition thing. The Dawn of the Dead limited edition from Second Sight has a dinged up corner because it fell out of my car and onto the ground. And it's nothing I can do. It's one of them things where I'm just like, I hate myself. But it's what are you gonna do? I mean,
those dinged up corners too are always an Achilles
it's so
heel
heavy.
for me.
It was a nice little bruise. There's a nice bruise on it. But
yeah, the one thing I do hate when it comes to dinged up corners is when you order something online, whether it be eBay, Amazon, wherever, and then it comes in, and then you got to check those corners right away. You got to check them right away, or else. Because that's where they're the most vulnerable.
Yeah, I just got in because I'm making sure I get all my Nicolas Cage. I just got in Valley Girl, and the Blu-ray is pushed in, like it's broken, it's cracked on the back.
Oh goodness!
Luckily, the artwork is fine, and I just took it out because I got to get a new Blu-ray case. But it's fine. I just got to replace the Blu-ray disc, and it's a standard Blu-ray disc, So, but it's like you got to check them. Sometimes they're hidden too. They're hard to see.
Yeah, and it really all depends on sometimes, the Blu-ray case themselves are in such, brittle, form, construction just in general, that any little drop, any little, if you hold it too hard, these things break sometimes.
Gentle.
You got to be so gentle with them. And don't get me started on eco cases. They're the worst invention known to man.
Ever.
But moving on from Hotel du Nord, because it's a really good film. It's such a dark film.
Yeah.
The basic premise of the film, just to sell it to people, if you need to be sold on it, is there's this young couple in the Hotel du Nord, and they basically have this suicide pact together, where they're one's going to kill one, the other one's going to kill the other, or something like that. And what happens is the man shoots the woman and chickens out on shooting himself, but he ends up getting arrested for, attempted murder. What ends up happening is she doesn't die. He thinks that she dies, but she doesn't. and she comes back to the Hotel du Nord and starts working there, and she ends up striking up a relationship with another person in staying at the hotel, and this person I believe is kind of like a pimp, if you will, Stephen.
A gigolo?
Because the woman
No,
he's
I'm just kidding.
involved with, I think is a prostitute. It's a very interesting, kind of cross cultural world that the movie's dealing with. No, I don't think he's not a pimp. You know what it is? He's on the run.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I don't know what I was thinking, prostitutes and pimps and all that stuff. Because I'm thinking like the seedy underbelly of film noir. That's what I'm
Sure,
thinking of.
probably.
And he's on the run from some bad dudes, gangsters, I assume. So he's trying to hide out, and he also has like a dark past and stuff that he's got to wrestle with and whatnot. So they have this relationship, and it's a very interesting film. I really, really liked it. It's a good watch, and this is getting a new 2K restoration. It's getting a new special feature as well, and yeah, I do recommend this movie.
Definitely.
But moving on from there, where do you want to go to now?
Well, let's do the Safdies.
Let's do the Safdie connection here, because there is a Safdie connection. So two of these movies I have the Safdie connection. First up is a direct connection. Daddy Longlegs, I believe, is the first feature-length film for Josh and Benny Safdie, who we know now who have directed Good Time as well as Uncut Gems. They've been in the Criterion Closet. They've done interviews on the Criterion Channel streaming service. They've been involved in there, and they're really interesting people. I can't wait to see what their next work is going to be.
I think they're doing another movie with Adam Sandler.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
That is what I heard. It's, I hope it's just as good as what we've seen from them recently. But this is Daddy Longlegs, and this is, yet again, it's interesting to see the early work of a director after seeing their later work, because you can see the origins of it.
Yeah.
You can see the machinations, you can see where the talent is and all that stuff. So Daddy Longlegs is a movie that is about a father named Lenny, this character named Lenny. He's a father to these two young kids, and he and the mother are separated, divorced, or something like that, but he only gets them for like a certain part of the year. I think it's like 2 weeks out of the year or something, where it's his responsibility to have them. But he's going right along with Robert Pattinson's character in Good Time, as well as Adam Sandler's character in Uncut Gems. They're just screw-ups.
Yeah.
They're just these guys you can't rely on for anything, who constantly get themselves in trouble, dig themselves into holes, and can't get out of it because of whatever reason. They're not, really great people. They're not really responsible people. And this movie's all about him and in those times, and him trying to balance being a father while also having his own life. And the movie is super low budget, really, guerrilla style filmmaking. You can tell that they probably didn't have permission to record stuff in certain places, around New York while making this movie. And it's really interesting seeing the movie, and the connection I'm making here is the writer of the film is Ronald Bronstein, and Ronald Bronstein wrote the screenplays for not only this film, but he also wrote the screenplays for Good Time as well as Uncut Gems. And he also wrote and directed the other film we're going to be talking about in a second, Frownland.
Oh, yeah.
So there's the connection right there. So we're getting like two Safdie-esque films here. And before we move on to there, I just want to say that it is getting a new 4K digital restoration transfer, new interviews with the actors in it, and then there's a documentary in it about the Safdies from 2017, which is really, really cool. But Frownland is written and directed by. I also want to say Ronald Bronstein is the actor who's in the movie as well.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy who plays this derelict father, this kind of irresponsible dude.
I hope this means we're going to be getting more. We're going to get Good Time in the.
I'm gonna say the only Safdie thing that we don't have is Good Time, and it's. I hope we get it at some point. It would be nice. Cause I still never bought that original Blu-ray release of it.
Oh, really?
The only Safdie Brothers film I have is the Uncut Gems original Blu-ray release, which obviously is a little defunct now
Redundant
because
now.
the Criterion's come
Yeah.
out. It's a little kind of a waste of a purchase. I wish I kind of knew beforehand what we were
Criterion.
that we were going to get the 4K. Would have been nice. But yeah, he's the star of this film, and then he wrote and directed the other film, Frownland. And if you thought Daddy Longlegs was a low budgeted film, Frownland is extremely low budgeted. And Frownland is a film. It's great now. It's streaming on the Criterion Channel as of this recording. But my goodness, this film as well as Daddy Longlegs, this film feels more like Uncut Gems.
Oh, really?
And Good Time than Daddy Longlegs does. This is dealing with somebody who, in Uncut Gems and Good Time, when watching those movies, you could feel the anxiety, the tension, the I don't know, there was a feeling of uncomfortableness watching those movies, but it was all internalized, and it was all just like kind of a theme running throughout the movie, and it was situational. Whereas in Frownland, the main character that we're following, exhibits all of those things within his character outwardly.
Yeah.
And it's tough to say, but he's super nervous, super antisocial, super anxiety type of person who probably has some type of mental illness or mental health issue going on that's not really openly discussed, not only within the film, but I think in which the time the film came out, which was 2007, people really didn't talk about openly mental health issues when it came to anxiety and depression and all of these things until really the last decade or so. It's more openly talked about than ever before. And people are more open with accepting that people need medication, and people need therapy, people need all these things. But this character in this movie doesn't have any of that, and he's just trying to live. And you're just watching these cringeworthy interactions throughout the movie. There's no real plot in it. It's just all this anxious vibe throughout it. So it is a difficult movie to get through on that level. If you feel affected by that, it's going to be tough for you, but it's such a fascinating, I think, character film. Like I said, it is streaming, and it is super low budgeted. Like, I'm glad it's getting a new digital 2K transfer and stuff like that, because it needs it.
Yeah.
And there's a conversation between Bronstein and filmmaker Josh Safdie, which is on the Criterion Channel right now. They talk for about 33 minutes about
Oh, nice.
the making of the film, the whole process, where it took like 6 years from like concept to it actually premiering for it to come out. And it was something that that Ronald Bronstein worked on for a long time, and you get into all of his inspirations and reasons behind it and his relationship with the movie as well. So it's interesting. It's not going to be for everyone though. It's not going to be for everyone.
It's going to be for me, because even if I don't like it, because if it's got the Safdie connection, I'm a big fan of the Safdie brothers, and I gotta have it.
yeah. But moving on from there, we have Buck and the Preacher, which is directed and starring Sidney Poitier, also with Harry Belafonte, and this is a Western. Came out in 1972. This is getting new 4K digital restoration. This is a pretty cool movie. It's a Western with Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte. I love their there's comedy, there's a comedic banter back and forth between the two. There's an allyship and then an enemy-based relationship as well going on. It's just an absolute fascinating film. I don't know, I really liked it.
Okay.
You know, it's got a lot going for it. It's fun. There's action in it. There's comedy, like I said, and it's a good character film. I definitely recommend it. I really like this push of a lot of these 1970s, African American cinema stuff that they've been doing now at Criterion, specifically with the Melvin Van Peebles set that came out, and now this.
Of course,
I'm really digging
Shaft
it. And then Shaft. Yeah, Shaft, which is I think just came out, or it's about to come out.
Yeah.
That's definitely one that's on my list for the next Criterion sale.
Most definitely.
Yeah, so Buck and the Preacher, Sidney Poitier's character is Buck, and Harry Belafonte is the preacher. Well, he's kind of like a fake preacher.
Yeah.
He's more of a con man.
Yeah. It's kind of like the show The Preacher, where he tries to be a preacher.
And Sidney Poitier's character is he's like a wagon master, or he's somebody basically that this is post Civil War times, and African, the freed slaves are looking for places to live, and they're trying to move westward, and they're being harassed and attacked by racist people, and so they're trying to find safe passage. So Sidney Poitier's character's job is to like find them safe passage and to find them essentially places to get to, because they're being driven out of everywhere. So it's a really fascinating kind of historical perspective on that. So moving on from there, we have the last film, which neither of us have seen,
No.
Steven, so we're on equal footing. I don't know anything about this movie. It's called Safdie. It's a sublime work of personal vision. The debut feature by Mexican-Ethiopian filmmaker Jessica Bashir is a hypnotic documentary immersion in the world of Ethiopia's Oroma and Harari communities, places where one commodity caught, a euphoria-inducing plant once prized for its supposedly mystical property, holds sway over the rituals and rhythms of everyday life. So this is a film that came out in 2021, and I'm noticing with a lot of modern films, they're really hard to find to watch.
Yeah.
Because if they're not streaming and they're not on physical media, they're not anywhere.
Yeah.
They are completely disappeared. And I think this movie probably streamed when it came out, but anything after that,
Yeah.
once it wasn't available on VOD, I guess it was available nowhere, at least from what I've seen. So I'm curious about it.
Yeah, I mean,
there's not much in the way of special features, though.
yeah.
There's
I mean, it's
three short
I guess
films
it's
by Bashir,
I
and
guess
that's
it's
it.
tough when it's a documentary because documentary is it kind of gets to the point.
In and of themselves are kind of like special feature-esque.
Yeah, and because it doesn't have history, it's a newer film. It's not one unless you're going to do like maybe a feature on the director, but this is her debut, so it's like there's not a lot to go on there.
Yeah, I mean, you could do an interview with the director
Sure.
or something like that. That would be kind of cool.
A little bit more history on that subject matter of that
Maybe an audio
plant, the
commentary
plant
or something like that. But that is Fayadai. Fayadai. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But I really dig the cover art, too.
Yeah.
It's very surreal. These are all coming out in August. We probably should have mentioned that before we started, but...
it's
these are
better
all-
late than never. Yeah.
Yeah, these are all the August releases.
Yeah.
But moving on from there, Steven, I'll let you take it because I've talked way too much.
Well, I mean, it's because
do you
you've
wanna
seen
go
way
for-
more than me.
Yeah, yeah.
Indicator, Powerhouses we're going to move on to.
Okay.
Once again, August releases. So we got 3 different releases here, and we got 4 different films. So first we'll start with Madagon, which is a film that stars, it's directed by Don Siegel, and it stars Richard Widmark and Inger Stevens and Henry Fonda. I believe it's kind of like a cop drama of sorts. I didn't get a chance to watch it. Then there's a double feature of Hammer Robin Hood films, which I think is another, they're kind of doing this now, it seems, to continue their line of like your film noirs and your Hammer films. They're not just doing just straight up Hammer. They're giving it more themes, like with the film noir bogey set that they're doing. So they're doing that also with their Hammers, where they're doing Robin Hood Hammer films. And so we got 2 different Robin Hood films from Hammer. We got Sword of Sherwood Forest, and then we also have where's the other one? The Adventures of no. What's the name of the other one?
Oh, it is. I will tell you right now because I am.
I'm sorry. Sword of Sherwood Forest and the Challenge for Robin Hood. That's it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and so I think you saw both of them, but we'll get to it. And then lastly is the one that we've been teased for a while, and it's finally making its way into the collection. And I know John and Sam are really excited to have this in here, and that's Burt Lancaster starring in The Swimmer. And yeah, it looks great. It looks great.
This is going to be a hot seller.
Yeah.
The film, directed by Frank Perry, came out in 1968. This has gotten a few Blu-ray releases over the last several years here in the U.S., specifically from Grindhouse Releasing,
Yes,
I believe they
that's it.
are. I have one
I have
of the
that, yeah.
editions. Steven has one. I think we have the same one, to be honest with you. It's been re-released a couple of times by them in slightly different versions.
Yeah.
Like one comes with the soundtrack, one doesn't. Some have different slipcovers, some have different artwork. I think that's about it. But this is one that's been highly anticipated. We talked about it when we were on Indicator Cast about a month or so ago.
Yeah.
It was hinted at maybe 2 months ago. I don't know. Time is really
Something
really
like
wonky these days. But yeah, this is the highlight, I think, for nearly everybody involved when it comes to this month. I got a feeling this is gonna sell quick.
I think it'll sell quick. It does have a new. So far, it looks like the newest thing in the sense of extras is the audio commentary with Frank Perry biographer Justin Bozung.
Yes,
now
that looks like it. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if these are. It says more extras to be announced,
Yes.
so these are not final.
Well, this is the thing, and this is going to be. I mean, I'm already getting this. This isn't. There's no discussion, but like when it comes to which is going to be the superior release, I mean, I can tell you now the features on the Grindhouse are fantastic. Like the documentary alone on Burt Lancaster is worth it. So Indicator's really going to have to do something in the features realm to really like up their game. I mean, of course, the packaging's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to have the same remaster.
I'm assuming too. I would
because it's a relatively recent release. I think the original release came out. Oh man, 2014 or so. The original release came out in 2014, and then there's been a release. There's been a release in 2020 and a release in 2021 with, like I said, the different packagings and all that kind of stuff. So it could be new. I don't know. Well, guess what? We will find out. The biggest thing is that I know the film itself is an incredible film.
Yeah,
It's really a film that I can't really get into all of it here just because, we would be here forever. But yeah, there's some stuff here. It comes with a limited edition book with new essays. It's going to be limited to 5,000 copies for the UK, which is a big number. It's the UK premiere on Blu-ray, so it's never been available in the UK on Blu-ray. It is region B locked for those of you interested, because, like I said, there's already a release here, so rights issues and whatnot. But yeah, that's the headline. I'll tell you this: Madigan is not a bad film. Madigan, directed by Don Siegel, who is no stranger to police procedurals.
Yeah.
I would say no stranger to that whatsoever.
Didn't he do a lot of the early Eastwood stuff like?
Well, he directed Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry, yeah.
And he worked a lot with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Throughout like the 70s. Like I think he did like Escape from Alcatraz and stuff like that. And he's no stranger to that at all. And this film is very much in that same vein. What happens is, I think I'm getting the right. Yeah, Henry Fonda plays the police chief, and Richard Widmark plays a police officer who I believe has his gun stolen, and they're given and he and his partner are given 72 hours to find the person who took his gun, and this guy also happens to be someone who's wanted for homicide as well. So it's kind of like a double investigation, and they're just going around trying to find this person, trying to, go, find some leads, go down these red herrings and all this kind of stuff. Very, very, neo-noir-esque, if you will, but, has that late 60s vibe to it. And there's also a separate plot line going on with Henry Fonda's character and things that are going on with him. I really liked it. I really dug it a lot.
Awesome.
Like I said, Don Siegel is a very solid director. He directed Dirty Harry, Escape from Alcatraz, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Play Misty for Me. A bunch of other movies as well. Coogan's Bluff, Two Mules for Sister Sarah, The Beguiled, and getting all the Clint Eastwood stuff that you people all know is really available.
And they've remade a few of them. Yeah.
They remade The Beguiled.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers has been remade.
Dirty Harry, the same premise has been used many, many times. Just think of kind of like Training Day is very much a Dirty Harry-esque film. That's another one I would look at. And these two Robin Hood films are interesting, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend them straight up. But it's a cool look at a different side of horror.
Yeah,
horror. Hammer, which is typically known for their horror. I'm very interested that these didn't find their way into maybe a Hammer box set, but I guess that in a way this is kind of like half a mini.
Maybe there's not really enough Robin Hood, other Robin Hood Hammer films, and maybe they didn't want to try to fit them in with other genres. Because
true. Maybe they only had the rights to two of them.
Yeah,
and they decided that let's let's just put these in a double feature box set together.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that the first film, which I think is maybe the better of the two, is directed by Terence Fisher, who directed The Gorgon, Revenge of Frankenstein, stuff like that.
Some Fu Manchu, I believe, too, maybe. Or no, wait, no.
Yeah.
No, he didn't do that. That's the other director.
Yeah, let me look up Terence Fisher. But this also has, like I said,
he's done
Peter Cushing.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff with Peter Cushing.
Well, Peter Cushing was definitely one of the stars of.
Didn't he do Did Terence Fisher do the Corruption movie that came out from Indicator? Was that him?
I gotta look it up actually. Yeah, no, I'm gonna look it up. I can't spell Terence Fisher right now to put it in IMDb, and it is a struggle to do.
That's what copy and paste is for.
Oh, you know what? That's exactly what I was just going to do, and yeah, because Terence Fisher he spells it differently than you would normally spell Terence. So, but I just wanted to check because he also did The Horror of Dracula. That's what I couldn't remember. Yeah, The Horror of Dracula, which was the first Christopher Lee Dracula film. Curse of Frankenstein, which was really one of the first marquee films of Hammer horror, starring, of course, Peter Cushing, as well as Christopher Lee, I think, was the monster. Yes, he was. He was the creature. So Terence Fisher, no stranger to Hammer of the time.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna get I'm gonna get this set. I mean, you know me.
And then the second film is The Challenge for Robin Hood, which is not a good title. It's just not a good title because it's just the retelling or like a reimagination telling of the origin of Robin Hood. Like you have he gets betrayed and he ends up falling in with the men in Sherwood Forest and he ends up becoming an outlaw. And it's kind of like the same story we've all already heard. So it's not exactly, not original, but it's like it's fine. I think both of these films are fine.
Yeah,
they're not really screaming for me to rewatch at any point or to really own right away. Not unlike The Swimmer or even Madigan. But yeah, is that seemingly the slate or is there anything else?
That's it. That's it for Indicator.
Yeah, that's it. That is Indicator. All right.
Well, moving
on to the larger slate.
Yeah.
The largest slate of them all, of course, is always Imprint. Going down to Australia. We've got plenty to talk about here, Stephen.
Yes, yes, we do. So, running it down, coming in like a deluxe cigarette box top is Gregory Peck I
have a lot to say about this, but go on.
On the Beach, which I think it also comes with another film. Is it a documentary on it called Fallout?
Yeah, it looks like from 2013 or...
Yeah, it's a feature documentary on the novel Hollywood movie on the beach. So it's a documentary on the movie. Then we have a third collection of essential film noir that includes 4 films, which are The Strange Love of Martha Ivers from 1946, Then we have No Man of Our Own from 1950, The Turning Point from 1952, and then The Desperate Hours, 1955, which I think got a remake with, what's his name? Kirk. Captain Kirk.
Douglas?
Captain Kirk.
Oh, William Shatner.
No, the other one.
Didn't
they remake Desperate Hours like 3 or 4 years ago?
Stewart? Who are you talking about?
Yeah, what's his name? I don't.
Patrick Stewart?
No, the guy that plays Captain Kirk in the most recent Star Trek.
Oh, Chris Pine.
Chris Pine.
You went you went all over the place.
Well, either way,
that one.
Desperate Hours. Didn't they remake that recently?
I'm looking it up. I don't know if you have the right film. When you put in the Desperate Hour or the Desperate Hours on IMDb, you get a flood of movies.
Oh, Jesus.
There's just too many of them to go through.
Jesus Christ.
I can look up Chris Pine's
I got it. Now that I know his name.
filmography. Was it not Chris Pine?
No, it is him. I know it's got to be him.
I think you're thinking of a different movie.
Maybe I am.
Because I know the
No,
movie
it's
you're
The
talking about.
Finest Hours.
The Finest Hour, yes.
Okay, whatever.
I knew it was something to do with an hour.
There's hours in there. But, all right, so Desperate Hours, that's another collection of film noirs there. And I don't know that there's any crossovers that I'm thinking of when it comes to, because we've had a few crossovers with Indicator stuff. I don't think
any of these cross over.
Yeah, I don't think there's any crossover there, so that's cool. Then we also got The Scarlet Hour, which is from 1956. We have I Am the Law, which stars Edward G. Robinson, which is from, what year? 1938.
1938.
So another 30s film. That's cool. Then we have from 1954, Secret of the Incas, or Incas.
Incas.
Or Incas, you're right. Sorry. And then 1939, another 30s film, Golden Boy.
Yep, William Holden.
And then one I actually watched that I got around to watching. That
Storm Center.
1955, starring Bette Davis, Storm Center.
Nice.
And then we go down. We got one more here, and it's from 1960. We have The World of Susie Wong, which also comes with a documentary as well. So
yeah, that's a two disc edition there.
Yeah, there's the second disc has Hollywood Chinese, which is a documentary.
Yeah, it's called Hollywood Chinese. Arthur Dong's a feature documentary on Chinese influence on Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then there's also The Curse of Guan Guan, a silent film from 1917. Very fascinating, very interesting.
Yeah, this all for the most part,
this whole slate is fantastic.
Yeah, I want it all.
Slate. I kind of want it all, but it's also
too fucking expensive.
Uber expensive.
Okay, I can tell you right now, On the Beach, I want. I would love the film noir set, but I don't even have the second one yet.
I don't even have the first one, which I think is out of print. Actually,
is it?
But I don't even know if the second one's out of print. But I know those were the first two were the ones that had crossovers with the Columbia Noir sets from Indicator.
Yeah.
I think that was why you didn't get the second one.
Well,
if I remember.
I didn't get it because it's too expensive, but I would have gotten it. I'm hoping to get to it eventually before it goes out of print. But
right.
Yeah.
But On the Beach is I got to talk about.
Talk about it, man, because I wanted to watch it so bad because it's on YouTube.
Yes, it is
easy to watch.
It is. It's a film starring Gregory Peck, Anthony Perkins. Came out, I think, 1959, I think, right before Anthony Perkins was in Psycho, of course.
Yes.
And it's film directed by Stanley Kramer. And for those of you who don't know who Stanley Kramer is, he directed Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. He directed Judgment at Nuremberg. Great director, one of my all-time favorites.
Kind of like a mainstreamy, he just got shit done. Like he put out just so much solid stuff.
Yeah, really good stuff, specifically in the 1960s, which was, of course, was a tumultuous time, culturally in the United States. But he also directed Inherit the Wind, The Defiant Ones. Great director. And this film I wanted to bring up because this film has been available on Blu-ray from Kino here in the United States since 2014. Like, it's been floating around. it's been in and out of my carts on both Amazon.com as well as Kino Lorber Studio Classics website so many times, and now I'm glad I waited because this is a super deluxe edition.
Yeah.
The Kino Blu-ray from 2014 has no features at all, just a
Wow.
trailer. That's it. So this is getting so much special features
Jeez.
wise. Like it's more than night and day if I had a comparison to it.
And
so
guess what? Kat Ellinger is doing a video essay on it.
Oh, awesome, awesome! Yeah, that's part of that. But it looks like it's getting it's a 2-disc edition. It's getting a booklet. It's getting, like you said, new audio commentary, visual essay by Kat Ellinger, interview with Kim Newman, video essay.
Tons
The
of
lobby
tons
cards
of
are
stuff.
thrown in there. Tons of stuff. But yeah, I really, really am looking forward to it. And the movie is interesting. It's playing on that kind of Cold War idea of, what would the world look like in a post-nuclear war type environment.
Yeah.
Basically what's happened is that I guess World War III has already broken out and we're getting kind of the aftermath of it. Gregory Peck's character is a captain of a naval submarine, a U.S. naval submarine who just happened to be in the South Pacific when World War III broke out in the Northern Hemisphere, obviously. No big surprise between the United States and the USSR at the time. And basically, United States has been wiped out, essentially. It's no longer there. But you have these kind of U.S. refugees, I guess, around the world, and I guess the radiation hasn't spread to the Southern Hemisphere yet. So there's like safe places, and I guess one happens to be Australia. And so Gregory Peck and his crew are down there kind of like living, essentially. He strikes up a relationship with Ava Gardner, his character, which was very fascinating, very melodramatic, very, kind of, we don't know how much time we're going to have left because radiation is spreading, so let's get together now. That type of relationship. Yeah. Tony Perkins is dealing with, he's married and has a kid, and he's got to deal with the fact that at some point his family's probably he and his family are not going to die, so what steps do you take, to ease the suffering of that? It's a very serious film in that regard. It's a good movie. I really liked it.
Would you say this could pair good with Doctor Strangelove?
Very similar.
Like, I'm just saying, like, you should watch Doctor Strangelove and then watch this movie.
Doctor Strangelove is more of a comedy, but yes.
Well, no, I know it is, but I'm just saying, like, you get that whole, like, movie about, like, satirizing the idea of a nuclear war, and then, like...
Well, the thing is, it's not even really much of a satire. It's kind of a cautionary tale.
Sure.
Not even a cautionary tale, because you're not even getting the usual, like, well, this could have all been prevented had people been nicer to each other or whatever, But you do get this idea that humanity is the cause of their own downfall, which is pretty accurate. Yeah. We are the cause of our own peril.
Yeah. In
many, many ways, whether it be personal, whether it be global. There are people pulling levers in places that have a ripple effect throughout the world. It's really an interesting film because of how low-key it is. It has a very From Here to Eternity vibe in it when it comes to the interplay with the characters. Fred Astaire is in the film. Mm-hmm. And it's a later performance from Fred Astaire. People probably think of Fred Astaire more as, for his, the singing and dancing films that he did early on in his career and whatnot. But this is 1959, a much older Fred Astaire, and you get a more serious performance from him, a la that you would get with Frank Sinatra in From Here to Eternity. So it's similar vibe to that. Obviously, completely different context and whatnot. But I really like the film a lot.
Cool.
And I'm glad it's getting this release. This release really intrigues me. So that's a highlight for me.
Yeah.
The Film Noir box set in and of itself is a solid box set.
Okay.
I was able to see 3 out of the 4 of the films in that set, and they're all pretty solid films.
Okay.
They're all films that I would recommend to film noir fans. I got to see The Turning Point. I got to see. The Desperate Hours is directed by William Wyler. So if you're a William Wyler fan,
they're doing it. You know what? They're doing it again because what was it? Detective Story. Wasn't it Detective Story and then another Wyler film that they put in one of the other box sets that made me want to get like?
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it was the first one.
And this is I also The Strange Love of Martha Ivers is directed by Louis Milestone. I can't remember if. Yeah, I know I've seen this film years ago. Yeah, Kirk Douglas is in the film. It's a film noir classic. I think Barbara Stanwyck is in the film as well.
Yeah.
And then the only one I didn't get to see was No Man Around. The Turning Point is also really good. It's a film. I wanted to say there was a reason why I wanted to watch it. And it kind of makes me want to get these sets if they weren't so expensive.
Yeah, it's at least they're at least $100 a pop, like at least.
Yeah, The Turning Point is from 1952, starring William Holden, Edmund O'Brien, and William Holden he's a reporter, and like his friend becomes the local like special prosecutor, and he's trying to crack down on organized crime. And he appoints his father, who is a police officer, as kind of heading the investigation into organized crime. But as corruption tends to go, his father may be involved somehow with organized crime. And William Holden's character is kind of like, he doesn't know whether to tell him. He doesn't know how to investigate it himself. But should he be true to as a journalist, or should he be true to his friend? There's a lot of interplay, and that's only part of the story. It's really, really good. Really great screenplay, really well done. I really liked it a lot. It's interesting that two of the films in this slate have William Holden at different point of his career.
Yeah.
Completely different points of his career. The other film being, what's the other film that he's in? Golden Boy, 1939. He is he's a young kid who's like 20 or so years old, and he's a musician. He's trained all of his life to be a musician. He's from like a really modest, rather poor, upbringing, and his father just wants him to be this great musician, this violinist, and he ends up started boxing, and he ends up doing well with boxing, but because, when it comes to musicians, specifically musicians who use their hands are kind of important.
Yeah.
So he's battling between whether he wants to become a boxer or whether he wants to become a musician like his father wants, and the relationship between him and his father is strained. All the while, like the promoters is kind of getting in his head, and there's a relationship that he gets into with, once again, I believe Barbara Stanwyck shows up in the film, and she starts like trying to manipulate him, but then she ends up falling for him as well. There's a whole lot going on in it. It's another really good film, and it's something I also recommend. And what is interesting in it is that I think Lee J. Cobb plays his father in a completely unrecognizable role.
Really?
Like, I did not realize it was Lee J. Cobb until after I watched the movie and looked it up on IMDb.
Is he yelling at him?
Yes. But he yells but he has like an accent.
Okay.
And he has a lot of...
So he changes it up a little bit.
Makeup and stuff. And it's almost unrecognizable. And at least I think it's... I think it's Lee J. Cobb. Maybe
it is. He's in the movie.
Yeah, it is. Barbara Stanwyck, Adolphe Menjou is in the film. Lee J. Cobb as Mr. Bonaparte. Yeah, and I didn't recognize him until afterward because you got to watch the movie to understand what I'm talking about when it comes to the accent and all this kind of stuff. And it's almost an over the top, ridiculous accent, and just completely playing it through the ceiling. I'm just knocking over my mic here for people understanding at home.
He gets excited and starts swapping his hands around and stuff, even though he's got to...
Yeah, when you talk about Lee J. Cobb, you got to get animated.
Yeah.
Got to get animated. You can't keep it down. but yeah, that's Golden Boy. This is a big slate of just so much stuff going on. I Am the Law stars Edward G. Robinson. So if you're an Edward G. Robinson fan, that's something you may be interested in. Also, the Scarlet. What's it called, Stephen? The
Scarlet Hour
is directed by Michael Curtiz.
Oh,
It's a
there he is again.
It's a late like kind of film noir with Michael Curtiz, directed in 1956, which is later on in his career, maybe past his prime, but the film is still really well directed and really well, like structured that you really kind of get into it. It's a solid film. But yeah, this is a really great slate. And then Storm Center, Stephen, is one that you really like. So
I really liked it.
Talk
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, it's stars Betty Davis, and she's like a librarian in this small town. And, you know, I just really like it because anytime when I can find a film that really is like, finds a way back to modern times, it's got a timeless value to it. Where the subject matter can still be talked about today, it's not only is it awesome, but it's also sad at the same time because it's like we are still dealing with this, And in this particular case, we have Betty Davis playing this librarian, and there's a particular book in the library which is about communism, and I think it's the name of the book's called The Communist Dream, and so one of the I guess you could say council members of the town gets a hold of the book and decides he wants to get the council together to remove the book from the library. They bring in Betty Davis and they say, hey, can you just do this? Well, it's just one book. It's not a big deal, And at first she kind of like agrees to it, but then she starts to realize that it's a slippery slope. That's really, really what the movie's trying to say, I think, is that when you try to censor something, even if you don't agree with it, it's a slippery slope because then who's the person that makes the decision on what is bad and what is good, And when you censor one thing, next thing you know, everything's gonna tons of stuff, and it's the stuff we still deal with today, even with books. Books are still getting censored.
Oh yeah, they're still banning books to this day, and some of the books that are banned are usually the books that that you learn the most from.
Yeah.
They're the books that force you to think about things very critically, specifically when it comes to things in our own society, things in our own history. Like, for example, many people have probably read this book, Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Is banned in some places. There are so many banned books, and they're doing it right now. They're banning books right now as we speak. It's baffling to me. A film from the 1950s is commenting on something that is literally still happening. And what is interesting is that the movie makes this kind of idea where the book itself is a terrible book. They acknowledge it itself, like the ideas in it are, not, they're not the way in which society should exist or ideals that people should adopt. But it's important to learn that by having that book available so that we can learn not to adopt those ideas.
Yeah.
That's what I think of when we're banning things that we don't like. We can't learn from them if we don't know they exist.
Yeah.
We gotta know how bad people's ideas are of the world so we don't replicate those ideas. I'm thinking of, one of the most controversial books probably of the 20th century probably ever is Hitler's book Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
Horrific book. Probably one of the worst things you'll ever read. But they teach it in schools because they teach you this was the basis of a horrific manifesto that really should never be adopted by human beings. And if they ban that, we'll never know what's in it to know not to do it.
Yeah.
And it's really important to know what we shouldn't do as a society because, as we've seen, people have very short-term memory.
Yeah.
where bad stuff that we did 20 years ago is bad stuff people keep readopting, and even bad stuff we did 50 years ago. We always talk about this in society. Things like sexism and racism and all these things don't ever really go away. People keep re-adopting these terrible ideas, and we need to learn how not to do that by teaching people that it's not right. Not, this whole idea. Now, I don't want to get too political, Stephen. You can stop me.
No.
Is not teaching young kids that racism is a part of this country's history and that it's a bad part of this country's history.
Yeah.
That it is a dark, terrible time in this country, and it's stuff that we still are battling today. And teaching them not being able to teach them the origins of it is a disservice, because you need to know the good and the bad to create a larger picture and to learn things.
Well, it's not.
Life is not all. What is it?
Sunshine and
black
rainbows.
Yeah, Sunshine and rainbows. I knew.
As in Stallone would say that from Rocky VI. It's
Yes,
not
it
all
is.
sunshine and rainbows, but it's
great impression.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's probably the only line I can make sound like that. But I totally agree with you. And it's not even just our responsibility as people of this country, or like our parents, or teaching their kids, but it's also it's our. I think this is even the line in the movie, like, the people of our country fight for these freedoms that we're hurting. We're hurting these freedoms, but we're sending our own people to fight against people that do the same exact thing. They censor everything. That's all they do to their own people, is censor and hold back things, and like they don't have freedoms over there like we do, but you're doing it to yourself right now. The thing that you're fighting against in that book, you're doing. That's what's so ignorant about it. It's like you're against that book, but you're doing what somebody in that book does to their own people, which is censor.
A lot of people don't realize that they end up becoming the things they hate the most.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize it.
Yeah, and the thing about the movie too is the movie goes through that whole journey. Because the one character in the council realizes his mistake by the end of the movie. Once it's gone too far, of course. But there is a full-on arc of this story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say the movie is good. It has a few issues with it.
It is dated.
I think the main, like we've been talking about, the main conflict in it gets kind of wrapped up a little easy.
It's a little
cozy.
yeah. But I think
Some of the acting
in my mind,
is a little bit much.
Yeah, my mind adds
concept,
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, the concept and the ideas within it are really solid.
Yeah.
It's, some of the acting choices and things like that aren't really great. And, it kind of wraps itself up in a very, not after school special way, but, wraps itself up in a rather neat bow.
Yeah.
Where it's a very complicated situation. Like, I don't see people reacting the way the people reacted in the movie eventually to the situation going on.
I agree. Yeah. But the ideas are there, and it's just great to see that a film of this time was already thinking about that, like, and trying to find a way to visualize that. Like you said, some of the ideas could have been fleshed out better, but for the most part, really enjoyed the movie. I really thought it was solid. Yeah.
But moving on from there, I think one of the other films that I saw that I can talk about is The Secret of the Incas, is a film starring Charlton Heston. And how do I sum up this movie? Charlton Heston is Indiana Jones.
Oh, man.
In South America. He's trying to find his lost Incan treasure, and that's what he's trying to do. And he's wearing a leather jacket and a hat the whole time.
Damn.
He looks just like Indiana Jones.
Is this not the movie? Isn't there a movie that did inspire Indiana Jones? Is this that movie?
It may be this movie.
I think that there was a movie. I've heard this. I've heard this somewhere. I don't know if I'm just making it up, but there is a movie that predated Indiana Jones that very much inspired the look of Indiana Jones, and maybe this was the one.
It may have been this film.
Yeah.
I know that Spielberg has taken many influences from many people in many of his films throughout his career. And he's readily, come out and said that. He's not shied away.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally says he's taken stuff from Michael Curtiz, who we just talked about, when it comes to taking stuff from Adventures in Robin Hood and using it in Indiana Jones. So it wouldn't surprise me if he took inspiration from this, but it looks uncanny.
Yeah.
If you look at Charlton Heston's character's aesthetic and you look at Indiana Jones, and it has that very, leather jacket, fedora-esque hat adventurer, treasure hunter type of person.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to check it out. But the thing with Charlton Heston is the films are not always great.
No, they're not.
Yeah, and
this is early Heston though. This is 1954, so this is way before. This is right before he would do like Ten Commandments. Yeah. Before he would do Ben-Hur, of course, way before he would do Planet of the Apes. So it's an interesting kind of portrait of his career at that time.
All right. Well, the last one. I guess you didn't get a chance to watch it, but The World of Susie Wong.
That one I did not get to watch, unfortunately.
But it is available. I believe it's available on YouTube as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, I should have looked it up.
I believe so. And this one, I'm excited. I might even blind buy this because I always get giddy about anything where it's a blind spot for me. And I think you brought up this actress, didn't you, to me? Susie Wong?
Oh, no, this is Nancy Kwan.
Or this particular actress that's in this. Didn't you bring this up to me, or was it a different actress?
I was thinking of Anna May Wong.
That's it.
When the Anna May Wong box set that's coming out from Kino.
Yes.
I was thinking of that.
But I get giddy about a certain section of cinema that I'm not as aware of, and being that this kind of it has this film in here, and then it also has a second disc that's a documentary about Asian Americans in cinema. Is like, I love that. I love when it gets, just like when we talked with Sarah Appleton earlier about her documentary on found footage. Like, it's a specific section of cinema that you're focusing on, and I love when documentaries and films can help shed more light on something like that, and that's what I want in my collection. Like it's like a library. It's a history. Like, I love getting all corners of that, and this is really yelling out to me to get it. So
yeah, and also coincidentally, it also stars William Holden. So there are 3 William Holden films in this slate. I don't know if they planned that or if it just happened that way, but you're getting all the William Holden you could possibly get.
A lot of Willie fan. In here.
Yeah, I guess so. I want to say that. Yeah. But I'm always a big fan of him, so yeah. I'm interested in it just for that in and of itself. But that's a really solid slate.
I like it.
This is a really strong slate.
I really like it,
them.
yeah.
I really like it a lot.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in here that all the stuff I saw is all stuff I'm interested in. And even the thing I didn't get to see, I'm interested in as well.
Yeah.
It's there's no real nothing here I would leave behind necessarily. I Am the Law is, like I said, it's starring Edward G. Robinson. It's a law-based film, I guess. Edward G. Robinson's it's another one of those films where he's trying to combat the mob, combat the law, and he's trying to prosecute people, and he's having a tough time doing that. Yeah. Because yet again, corruption and people being connected that are close to you into certain places and all that. So it's a really hard place to traverse. And I just like Edward G. Robinson, especially at that time in the late 1930s where he was doing like gangster films, and then of course he's flipping it and now doing a lawyer film as well. The people who go after gangsters. Yeah. So he could do it all the time, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Unless you got anything else to say, I think that's it for this episode.
No, that's it. That's all the slates, all the big stuff.
Oh yeah,
all the big stuff.
A lot of big stuff this week. But with that said, Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Cabzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can also find me at all the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it be our Twitter, our Instagram, or you can find me at Letterboxd at Chasing Labels. You can also find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.